Edge of Fate is around the corner. I have another Edge of Fate video for you because I really looked at it and I want to separate the two from Right of the Nine and Edge of Fate. I hear a lot of complaints going on in X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and in the general, the community has been kind of in an upfire a bit, and I just wanted to throw something everyone's way here. A lot of the changes that Bungie's doing is what a lot of people have asked for, but they no longer want them once they actually see it be enforced. Now, I know that sounds weird and kind of like that doesn't make any sense, but let me explain it like this. A lot of people have wanted a Destiny 3, and with a Destiny 3, there comes the problem of literally getting rid of our whole arsenal of weaponry we have, and all of our armor, and everything else. But you know what that doesn't happen with? When you have a Destiny 2.5, where you keep all of your armor, and you keep all the weapons you have, so you don't have to remake it again later on, when you hear all the players just crapping their pants over not having these weapons and or exotics anymore, even though it's a brand new game. Because the community right now is, from what I've seen from the few streams that I've watched from other Destiny content creators, is very split on even if they wanted a Destiny 3. About 50-50 say yes, the other 50% say no, and the main problem with it has to do with the fact that you would have to regrind for all of your weapons and gear and start your vault from the very start once again, which was a problem even when it came to the creation of Destiny 2. But many people also agreed that Destiny 2, in its current state, needs a large change, and Edge of Fate adds that large change. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think a lot of quality of life updates should be happening because of an expansion, but it should be included with the expansion. So let's take the price part out of this if we can, as much as possible. People wanted to make it feel like their legendary weapons once again mattered, like exotics once again mattered. And from everything I can tell, they're going to be resetting that situation where these things actually matter once again. For years now, since I've been playing Destiny 2, for the most part, I get an exotic drop. I look at it like you would look at a blue engram. Same with the purple drop. I'd look at it like I just got a blue engram. And luckily, years ago, if I remember correctly, they made it so blue and green engrams no longer drop for higher level players. Once you pass a certain tier point, they no longer exist for you. That comes with problems. The problem being that, well, now you have a lot smaller of a loot pool to get stuff from, which would be either yellow or purple. Once you have that smaller loot pool, it's going to make things a lot easier to get. Not just that, but you have guaranteed weaponry as well, and the exotics have not really felt so much more exotic lately, if we're being honest. The only ones that stand out is pretty much seasonal besides Lord of Wolves, which currently, in the current sandbox, still feels amazing and needed a buff to begin with, but we have no idea what kind of nerf they're going to do for it once Edge of Fate comes by, because let's be honest, they're going to nerf it, and it's probably going to be into the ground. It has been the weapon that pretty much everyone uses as much as possible in any situation where you're slightly up close, besides the Legends of Arceus or Arceus, whatever that is. I know that's a Pokemon. Alright, but it sounds the same to me. For the most part, people have been complaining that their weaponry feels like it doesn't matter. How do we solve this situation? Let's put ourselves in Bungie's feet. Tier system. Okay, well, tier system could work. Make weapons have A, B, and C, and do C, D, and A, whatever. It would have special customizations to it, add some more to it, subtract some more to it, depending, of course, on the tier you get. To me, that sounded like an amazing idea. It still sounds like a great idea. Does it suck that you're going to have to delete most of your vault from what it at least looks like right now? Yes, it absolutely does. But people have been asking for a new game, and from what I can tell and how I'm taking Edge of Fate currently, now that I've really looked at it and really thought about it, I'm looking at it as a new game. You just get to keep all of your old stuff. Now, I know you can look at Call of Duty and they let you keep most of your skins and stuff every time you go to a new COD, but let's be honest here. A new Call of Duty isn't anything exceptional. It's not anything amazing anymore. They're just using COD HQ, and you're buying a license to play that game with inside of COD HQ. So it's pretty close to the situation you're looking at currently. And with the Destiny 3, you'd lose a lot of community. That's my honest opinion. You'd lose a lot more people that are currently playing the game than you'd bring anyone back. Our exotic armor seems to be getting useless though. And I understand after hours of grinding these amazing spec exotics, you want to be able to keep them and move on with them. How often have you been using most of these exotics though? All right, the best of the best you have, and pretty much only use that one. But if they want to even out the playing field, because let's be honest, this game is not doing great in player base. If they want to even out the player field, what they're going to need to do is exactly what they are doing with the armor. They're going to need to do some sort of reset and how the stats work, and how armor works itself, which is Armor 3.0, to make it so it looks more inviting for new players to join. Not just that, but let's be honest, when you say discipline, I didn't even really pay attention to something like that until I was actually starting to get good in the game. But when it says exactly what that thing is, like weapon, super, so on and so forth, and you know exactly what that stat is, instead of intellect, who would have put super and intellect as a first starting player, unless you read the whole thing, super and intellect in the same column? You wouldn't have. You wouldn't have really thought twice about it. So with this circumstance, it's not only a reset to the player as a whole in a lot of ways, but it is making it more inviting for new players because they feel like they are going to be able to start at least on generally the same base as the olders. Will we still, as older players, have somewhat of an advantage? Absolutely. Will it be quite as insane as it is now? Probably not. Now, I think that once a DLC passes about a year, they should also make it so most of the supers, like Strand and Stasis, you no longer have to go out and grind any of the aspects and fragments for it. And this vice versa for Prismatic as well. Why do that when you can just hand it to them and make it so they can want to play more of the content? To me, the biggest pain in this game was when I was grinding for Strand, Stasis. Prismatic, not so much, it wasn't too bad, but Stasis and Strand, that's why my Hunter only has so much of the Strand Stasis kit, and my Titan pretty much has none of the Strand kit, even though the Strand kit for it is pretty damn good. It's just too much of a pain for me to want to sit there and grind out on a consistent basis because it's fairly boring. But nevertheless, this is going to make the playing field more even and be more inviting to new players. You look at a power level thing as well, alright? Right now we're at 2,000 something, or 20,000, whatever it is. It looks like an insanely high jump to make. The reset in power level makes it look like it's a plausible achievement to newer players, which in my opinion, this current new expansion is definitely swayed more to trying to get new players than it is to even fully bring back older players. A lot of older players won't come back because they still feel scorned in somewhere. They still feel like they got flamed beyond Light Drop and it took expansion pieces away with Forsaken, the Red War, so on and so forth. A lot of players are still mad about that. You're not going to get a lot of those players back, and I think Bungie's come to accept that. You know how you do get players back though? By making it seem like it's very easy to jump in to a new player. A level system that goes from 1 to 300 is a lot easier to comprehend than one where you don't realize you possibly start already at 1900 or whatever the minimum is right now, and the top of it is really, you know, it's not that much of a jump when you're really playing the game hardcore like most of us general players do who are dedicated to this game to 2020. It's one of those situations in where I think Bungie's trying to make this not just approachable for new players, but give the community what they want in an essence, but the community doesn't like it. And there's plenty of reasons not to like it. You feel like your grind and time was wasted, but at the same time, I feel like my time's being wasted in playing the game, and I instantly get the drop as well. We're kind of in a weird situation where they're damned if they do and damned if they don't. I currently think what they're doing is on the right path. I'm a little annoyed with the fact that we're not getting any sort of generally new abilities, besides on the one new planet that I can't even, Kryptonian or whatever it is, they're having Superman over there. They're going to be having Kryptonite. You're going to have to light it up right in Superman's face and destroy his alien ass. But for the most part, this is a general reset and a Destiny 2.5, aka I guess you would call it Destiny 3, by trying to keep the old fan base happy by keeping all of the weapons that they grinded out before, but bringing in new fans by making it look like it's a reset of the game in general. In my opinion, what they really should have done, and people are going to disagree with me on this, and this is okay. It's alright, we're all different humans, we're all different people, and we all have different ideas of what is best for this game. If they were going to go at this situation, what they should have done is pulled an Overwatch. They should have taken Destiny 2, put it offline for a week or whatever to update the systems or whatever they have to do, and just slap Destiny 3 on there. And then we keep all of our old stuff, and it just has a 3 at the beginning of it instead of a 2. Now that would probably increase the amount of players that come to it, and I know it was successful for CSGO. It wasn't as successful for Overwatch 2 because they didn't commit to their promises of actually coming out with a proper campaign, which it is what it is. You can't always have things like that happen. I don't play Overwatch 2, so I don't know the pain that those player bases are going through. But I will say that some of the abilities that Bungie is nerfing, in my opinion, is overkill. And this is where I feel a lot of players are starting to get more annoyed than the actual weapons and armor system itself, is what they're specifically doing to abilities. And one of them, in my opinion, and most people's opinion, is what they're doing to stasis. They're making it so shattering an enemy is no longer going to stun to unstops. Sorry, Bungie, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard you pull with this game so far. And honestly, you've pulled some really dumb crap with this game, and it's ridiculous. Stasis doesn't really have that much use besides on Warlock, and that's only because you run your nice pair of gauntlets there that you get that brings your little Arc Soul and your Stasis turret out at the same time. That's pretty much it. Other than that, there is no reason to be running Stasis. Standard Stasis is nowhere near where old Stasis was. I mean, besides the fact that when PvP wanted it nuked into absolute hell for good or worse reasons, whatever you want to say, and PvE seemed to love it. I mean, Warlock was really OP only because of how fast you get back the turrets, in my opinion. But really, Hunter is where it was for Stasis, and to this day, they're still probably the better subclass for Stasis. For, well, I guess that's not true. Titan, with the behemoth punch, the Falcon punch to the ground, is really the best subclass for Stasis, but beforehand they were horrible. But they're nerfing Stasis in a way to where it's going to be unusable even more. They haven't updated Stasis in a long time. They added, what was it, Stasis armor? Let's be honest. How many people here actually know anything about how to properly get frost armor on a consistent basis? Because I don't. Unless maybe it's by harvesting those little crystals, which, I mean, in my opinion, that's kind of stupid. Why wouldn't I get stasis armor like I get Radiant, at least on a Warlock, where you throw your melee forward, it tracks, freezes something, frost armor. That's it. That makes a lot more sense. But the unfortunate circumstances, since a lot of people wanted stasis so nerfed, it seems like they have not gotten their eyes off stasis and continue to nerf it anyway. It's like a horse that's in a skeleton, decomposed on the ground already, and they just keep going over there to kick the rib anyway. It's just dust at this point. There's no more rib. It's just little crumbles of like chocolate chip cookies into the ground that a toddler came and squished between his hands, okay? There's nothing there anymore. Stasis is generally unusable besides in very, very specific situations. I mean, honestly, Strand isn't even that great anymore. At least on Warlock it isn't. On Titan it's pretty good still. Hunter, I have no idea, but with the new exotic armor coming out, the Beyblade should be going wild on that. Let's be honest. Those Beyblades are going to be great for you guys. It's going to be absolutely amazing. But because of this and the fact that they're going to be nuking Prismatic, and I know Prismatic in ways is quote-unquote OP, but to be honest with you, as a Warlock, you're still using well in a lot of situations. So I'm just waiting for the fact that we're not too far off from Starfire Protocol just working when you croc Radiant. Let's say you're using the new Warlock Super, the new Warlock Solar Super, which I always forget the name of, Song of Flame, and you're just crocking it constantly because you have the little snap on, so every time you hit them with your snap, you become Radiant. Well, then you're going to have possibly a better time in Prismatic, but most of the time you're still going to be using Well, and it's going to go back to the old Well and Grenades build that was dominant on Warlock to begin with. Now, I personally think they're going back on what they did with Starfire, not completely, but a good amount, because they noticed that Warlock still had to use Well, and it still wasn't great, and Warlocks really had good damage only with Sanguine, and then they nerfed Sanguine, which makes no sense at all, by the way. The nerf they did to Sanguine was ridiculous. The nerf they're doing to Consecrations is ridiculous. I'm not a fan of nerfs in general, but a lot of these are areas that didn't need to be touched. Bungie really just need to focus on where the armor was, and if anything, give buffs. The reason they're bringing back Starfire Protocol is because they realize how bad they've made Nova Bomb and Geomag stabilizers still. Yes, you can crock a lot of supers with Geomags, but it's still horrible with damage. At best, it is a really good ad clearing ability, sandbox abilities there, Subclass all around, though, isn't great. There's no real healing to it. There's nothing special like with Titan. You could just go up and punch things and you get health back. Last time I checked, for the most part, Warlocks are the healing goats in this game. That's what they're supposed to be. Titans, on the other hand, on Arc, you hit something, it kind of works like how Devour works for Void on Warlock, which they're nerfing as well. For what reason, I don't know. Probably because of Prismatic, if I had to decide, but if anything, they should have left Void Warlock alone in general. Void Warlock is probably one of the least used supers in the entirety of this game, probably least used subclass. If there's any Void Warlocks out there, shout out to you, maybe tell me about your experience if you actually like using Void Warlock, but I'd have a feeling 99% of you are just running Prismatic with Star Eater Scales at that point, and Apotheosis or Inmost Light or whatever else build you have up in there. But for the most part, you're just looking to throw the Nova Bomb in Prismatic. No one uses Void. Arc has a place, Solar has a place, Hunters are pretty much still stuck on Prismatic for the most part. I haven't seen them go off it too often, besides the average, it was good in Ultimatum to have a Hunter constantly pop off their Orpheus rigs with a tether, but still, even then, you could still use that inside of Prismatic. You just wouldn't get as much of the invisibility that you get from Void. Even though the new Aspect or Fragment, I always get them mixed up, is not bad, where it helps the team all go invisible. It wouldn't surprise me if in the future that gets nerfed too. I know they're doing a large, quote-unquote, large buffed Pocket Singularity, but no one's going to use Pocket Singularity still, in my opinion. The Strand Super goes way farther, it has far more versatility to it, and the fact of the matter is, they can delete Bleak Washer, they can delete Helion, but in my opinion, nerfs never really bring players back. In general, you're probably just going to lose players. Maybe PvP players might come back, but for the most part, most of those guys are gone. Most of them are gone and haven't come back. And I'm not going to sit here and say that PvE players like me don't need PvP. I don't necessarily care if it's there or not, if PvP is there or not. But I understand that a lot of people played this game because of PvP. I will say that the sandboxes need to be cut in half at this point in time, because it seems like they're really just doing stuff more out of simplicity than the actual happiness of the players, which I thought that it was kind of split up. Let me know if I'm wrong. I thought it was split up beforehand, or they kind of derived them off from each other in some way or form. Maybe they didn't actually really do anything real with that, but who knows. What I can tell you, Weaver's Call aspect, okay, they're upgrading that for Warlock. No one's gonna use that. No one's gonna care about Threadlings. Threadlings are still pretty stupid. Like, the Threadling themselves, the AI of the Threadling themselves is actually, they're little dumb guys. They try and jump at things and just end up falling into the abyss 90% of the time. Prismatic, they're changing Helion and Bleak Watcher on Warlock, which is going to make it so pretty much you're stuck on Well of Radiance, without a doubt in your mind. Get ready to be back on Well of Radiance, Warlocks, or at best, you're going to be on Song of Flame. Titans are going to absolutely destroy Consecration's damage, I guarantee it, I can see it now. They're changing that from 2 to 3. Oh wait, actually no, it looks like maybe getting a little upgrade. Increased fragment slots provided from 2 to 3. Looks like you'll be alright there. But for the most part, the nerfs is what's going to do a lot of stuff in my opinion. And I think that's where a lot of people get a little more annoyed with the fact of the matter, is that things keep getting nerfed while the stuff you don't want to use anymore is still not powerful, but it's just slightly powerful enough to bring you over that board. Hunters are still obviously probably going to rock with Still Hunt plus Golden Gun for the most part. I guarantee you'll see a few of those on the day one raid. We have no idea what the boss looks like, so who knows if it's going to be another Witness situation where they literally just sit there and all you have to do is move on the platform and do a little damage. From what I know of, it's supposed to be like an interactive raid where you can actually change how the raid works. I could be incorrect, but I thought I heard something about that. At least you could put modifiers on that would change it. Ascension, they're changing that for Hunters, but for the most part, they're going to be killing Arc Titan in a lot of ways by making it so your classic, beautiful, beautiful arc shields don't stack when you put more than one out. So what are they going to use? Well, they're just going to go back to Consecrations and Prismatic. And they're going to be using Thunder Crash most of the time. You might have one Arc Titan, if you're lucky, that'll actually sit there and throw out their Bolt Charge in front of you. But for the most part, it's no longer going to be what you need when you need it for damage. Because let's be honest, in a lot of situations, it doesn't really feel like you need the Well of Radiance there as much as you need the Arc Charge Titan throwing his hands and clapping it in front of him to make it so everyone is bolt charged up for that damage phase on a consistent basis. And it's made things not just a lot easier in ways, but it made it more efficient, especially because half the time it feels like most of our guns aren't really doing enough damage to begin with. Most abilities aren't doing enough damage to begin with. But you know what is? The fragment, or not the fragment, the seasonal artifact with the ability to just clap some electricity on something on a consistent basis because it works well. That's why every Titan has been running the arc clap bolt charge thing. I always forget what it's called. But for the fact of the matter is most of these things seem to be getting some sort of nerf that isn't going to be worth it in the long run. Warlocks are going to go back to Well. Titans are going to go back to Prismatic and Hunters. Who knows what's going to go on. I know for the most part that everyone will be pretty mad originally at the armor and gun reset, but it shouldn't be too bad overall. I think a lot more people will come to enjoy what they have when it comes to the armor reset and the gun reset. And a lot more people will be more angry about the actual ability nerfs that are coming. They're changing the reward system in the season pass. Doesn't really matter to me. Never really matter to begin with. But we'll see what happens there. I think a lot of people will end up liking the Armor 3.0 and weapons. I want to even call them 4.0 because it kind of is a new weapon change. So weapons 4.0, I guess we could say. And really what's going to kill it is the amount of nerfs they're doing. They're probably going to undo a lot of these things after the day one raid, of course. It's not going to be until after the day one raid that they decide to take back all of this. But they're going to probably change a lot of it the very week after. And then we'll see a lot of the stuff that we used to love go back. Either that or it's going to be like Starfire Protocol, where it's pretty much dead for a solid year after Nezarec, or 2 years after Nezarec, and then they bring it back 2 years later. You never know. I mean, if I remember correctly, they also did the same thing to Blade Barrage on Hunter and Star Eater Scales when it came to absolutely wrecking everything. And I haven't seen a single Hunter use Blade Barrage since, because it is simply not worth it. I know that people don't want OP things in the sandbox, but sometimes it's worth it just so you can feel like you can use other abilities besides the one that it seems like Bungie really wants to take you down. For Warlocks, it's Well of Radiance and Solar on a consistent basis. It's going to go back to that even more with the Prismatic. With Titans, it would have been either Arc or Prismatic, and they're going to pretty much be going back to Prismatic for the most part. With Hunters, you're going to be looking at going back to Solar or Prismatic. And that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you hate what I said, love what I said, don't agree, do agree, and just have something to add down in the comments. Feel free to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. You have a great day, night, and or evening. Peace.